I never thought silence could be so loud until the day my family erased me completely. The Rodriguez family was never subtle about their expectations. Growing up in a tight-knit Mexican-American household in San Antonio, I learned early that conformity was the unspoken currency of love. My father, Miguel Rodriguez, was a respected local businessman whose reputation meant everything. My mother, Carmen, was the quintessential traditional wife. Her world revolved around church, family gatherings, and maintaining appearances. I was supposed to be the perfect daughter, get a respectable job, marry a nice Mexican man from a good Catholic family, and produce grandchildren who would continue our legacy. For years, I played the part perfectly. I became an architect, dressed professionally, maintained excellent grades, and seemed to be following the prescribed path. But there was a truth burning inside me that couldn't be contained any longer. When I came out to my family, the world as I knew it shattered. It wasn't a dramatic scene of screaming or physical confrontation. Instead, it was a calculated, cold withdrawal. My father's eyes hardened like granite. My mother's face became a mask of disappointed resignation. The silence that followed was more brutal than any words could have been. "You're choosing to disappoint everything we've worked for," my father said, his voice low and controlled. "This is not who we raised you to be." My younger brother Carlos wouldn't even look at me. The family WhatsApp group went silent. Invitations to family gatherings stopped. Christmas came and went without a single message. I became a ghost, systematically erased from our family's narrative. Maria, my partner, was my anchor during this time. We had met 3 years earlier at an architectural conference in Chicago. She was brilliant, kind, and saw me in a way no one else ever had. When we decided to get married, we knew it would be a statement, not just of our love, but of our right to exist authentically. The wedding planning became an act of defiance and hope. We chose a beautiful venue in the Texas Hill Country, with rolling landscapes that seemed to embrace endless possibilities. Every detail was carefully considered, the vibrant colors reflecting our shared Mexican heritage, the modern design that spoke to our professional lives, the subtle touches that celebrated our journey together. Deep down, a small part of me hoped, irrationally, perhaps, that my family might surprise me, that they might recognize the love, the commitment, the beautiful life Maria and I were building. I imagined a last-minute reconciliation, a tearful embrace, an acknowledgement that love transcends traditional boundaries. But hope, I was learning, is a dangerous thing. As the wedding day approached, the silence from my family grew more profound. No calls, no messages, no hints of potential reconciliation. Each passing day made the reality clearer. I would be walking down the aisle, alone, without a single blood relative to witness my most significant moment. The betrayal wasn't just about missing a wedding. It was about being deemed unworthy of love, of family, of basic human dignity. And in that moment of anticipated rejection, something inside me began to shift. From hurt to a quiet, burning determination. The wedding day arrived with a brilliance that seemed to mock my internal turmoil. Sunlight cascaded through the venue's floor-to-ceiling windows, casting golden hues across the carefully decorated space. Maria looked radiant, her white dress a statement of pure joy and defiance. I had meticulously planned every detail, hoping, somewhere in the darkest corner of my heart, that my family might surprise me. The guest list was a mosaic of our chosen family, colleagues, friends, Maria's relatives who had embraced me as their own. My best friend Lucia had been my rock, helping me navigate the emotional minefield of the past months. As the ceremony approached, I found myself scanning the entrance repeatedly. Each time the door opened, my heart would leap, only to sink moments later. The chairs reserved for my family remained conspicuously empty, a glaring void that seemed to grow larger with each passing minute. When the music started, I caught Maria's eyes. She squeezed my hand, a silent promise of strength. But I could feel the weight of absence pressing down on me. My father, who had once proudly walked me to ballet recitals and graduation ceremonies, was nowhere to be seen. My mother, whose embrace had been my sanctuary growing up, had chosen silence over love. The moment came to walk down the aisle. The silence was deafening. I remembered the last conversation with my parents. "This is not a marriage," my father had said. "This is a betrayal of everything our family stands for." My mother had simply stood beside him, her silence more cutting than his words. They had effectively written me out of their lives, as if I had never existed. During the ceremony, I caught glimpses of sympathetic looks from our guests. Some were tears of joy, others of understanding. But beneath my carefully composed exterior, something was breaking and rebuilding simultaneously. When the officiant asked if anyone objected to our union, the silence was thunderous. No dramatic interruptions, no last-minute reconciliations, just a profound, calculated absence. The reception was a celebration of love, but for me, it was also a moment of profound reckoning. Each toast, each dance, each loving glance from Maria was both a balm and a reminder of what I had lost. My family's absence was not just about missing a wedding, it was a complete rejection of my existence. As the night progressed, I realized something fundamental had changed within me. This wasn't just about hurt anymore. This was about accountability. The quiet determination that had begun to simmer during the months of silence was now a full, controlled burn. I looked at Maria, saw her, love, and made a silent promise. They would understand the true meaning of consequence. Revenge is an art form, and I was about to become its master architect. The first months after the wedding were a period of careful, methodical preparation. My professional training as an architect had taught me something crucial. Every structure has its vulnerabilities, and the Rodriguez family was no different. I would design my retribution with the same precision I used to draft building plans. I began by gathering intelligence. Years of family gatherings, conversations, and hidden observations became my blueprint. My brother Carlos worked in commercial real estate, a fact that would prove particularly interesting. My father's business, a network of construction and development companies, had always prided itself on being a pillar of the local Latino business community. Each piece of information was a potential structural weakness. I enlisted the help of Lucia, my best friend and a brilliant forensic accountant. Over late-night strategy sessions, we mapped out the Rodriguez family's economic and social infrastructure. Maria supported me silently, understanding the depth of my pain without judgment. "This isn't about destroying them," I told Lucia one night. "This is about exposing the truth." We discovered several critical vulnerabilities. My father's business had been cutting corners on environmental regulations for years. Carlos had been involved in some questionable real estate deals that skirted ethical boundaries. My mother's perfect social image concealed a network of manipulations and social climbing that would crumble under careful scrutiny. I began building my strategy like I would design a complex architectural project. Each move would be calculated, each revelation precisely timed. I wasn't interested in simple destruction. I wanted a systemic deconstruction that would make them understand the true meaning of being erased. My architectural firm became an unexpected weapon. I started cultivating connections with environmental journalists, urban planning committees, and local community leaders. I positioned myself as an ethical voice in an industry often plagued by corruption. Each professional achievement became another layer of my strategic approach. The Rodriguez family believed they had removed me from their narrative. They didn't realize I was rewriting the entire story. My first strategic move came through a local environmental investigation. Using my professional credentials and carefully gathered evidence, I anonymously provided information about my father's company's consistent environmental violations. The initial report was subtle, just enough to raise questions, not enough to be immediately traced back to me. Carlos became my next point of focus. His real estate dealings had multiple ethical gray areas that would not withstand serious scrutiny. I began collecting documentation, building a comprehensive profile of his professional misconduct. "Are you sure about this?" Maria would ask, her hand on mine. I would simply smile. Precision was my weapon. Patience, my strategy. The Rodriguez family had a fundamental weakness: their belief in their own invincibility. They thought removing me from their lives meant I would simply disappear. They were about to learn the true meaning of consequence. My revenge would be an architectural marvel of psychological and professional deconstruction. Brick by brick, I would dismantle everything they believed made them untouchable. The first domino fell during a regional business conference, an event my father had long considered his professional showcase. I arrived unexpectedly, dressed in an impeccable charcoal suit that screamed professional success. The room went silent as I walked in, my presence a calculated disruption. Years of architectural achievements were displayed on the conference's digital welcome board, projects that had earned national recognition, sustainable design awards that challenged traditional construction paradigms. My father, Miguel Rodriguez, stood at the podium, mid-presentation about his company's commitment to community development. His smile froze when our eyes met. The environmental report I had quietly circulated began to bear fruit. Investigative journalists had picked up the thread, digging deeper into Rodriguez Construction's practices. Subtle questions about waste management, illegal land acquisitions, and environmental shortcuts started to emerge. Carlos looked increasingly nervous. I could see the sweat forming on his forehead, the slight tremor in his hand as he adjusted his designer tie. He knew something was coming. My strategy was deliberate. Each revelation was carefully timed, each piece of information strategically released to maximize impact. I wasn't interested in a quick, violent revenge. I wanted a systematic deconstruction that would make them truly understand loss. The first major blow came through an expose in a prominent Texas business journal. Anonymous sources, carefully cultivated through my professional network, provided detailed documentation of environmental violations and questionable business practices. Carlos's real estate deals were particularly vulnerable, with evidence suggesting multiple instances of fraudulent permit acquisitions. Family friends began to distance themselves. The social circles my parents had so carefully cultivated started to fracture. Invitations dried up. Business partnerships became strained. The Rodriguez name, once synonymous with community leadership, began to lose its luster. My mother's social standing was next. I knew her power lay in her carefully constructed image, the perfect church volunteer, the gracious community leader. Through strategic connections, I began to expose the manipulative nature of her social climbing. Whispers about her past, about the ways she had stepped on others to maintain her position, started to circulate. "You're destroying everything." Carlos confronted me during a chance encounter at a local coffee shop. His voice was a mix of desperation and anger. I looked at him calmly. "No," I replied. "I'm simply revealing what was always there." The psychological warfare was precise. Each revelation was backed by irrefutable documentation. I wasn't making things up. I was exposing truths that had been carefully hidden. My wedding day's absence became a metaphor for their larger betrayal. Every professional and social blow was a response to that fundamental rejection. I wasn't seeking simple vengeance. I was demanding accountability. Maria remained my anchor through this process. She understood the complexity of my actions, the deep pain that drove my strategy. "You're giving them a chance to see themselves," she would say, holding my hand during late-night planning sessions. The Rodriguez family's response was predictable: denial, anger, attempts to discredit the sources. But the evidence was too solid, the documentation too comprehensive. I had learned from the best, from years of architectural training where every detail matters, where structural integrity is everything. I was applying those same principles to dismantling their carefully constructed facade. By the time the full extent of their misconduct became public, the Rodriguez name was irreparably damaged. Not through violence or sudden destruction, but through a methodical exposure of their true nature. I had become the architect of their unraveling, and I was just getting started. The final confrontation was inevitable. I chose the location with surgical precision, the very community center where my family had built their reputation, where they had hosted countless fundraisers and community events. It was a public hearing about urban development and environmental sustainability. The irony was perfect. My father had always positioned himself as a community leader, a champion of local progress. Today, he would face the consequences of his years of manipulation. I arrived with a comprehensive dossier, years of research, carefully collected evidence, professional documentation that would strip away the Rodriguez family's carefully constructed facade. Maria squeezed my hand before I entered, her support a quiet strength. The room was packed. Local business leaders, journalists, community activists, all waiting to hear about the new urban development proposals. My father sat at the panel, looking distinguished in his tailored suit, the picture of professional respectability. When I took the microphone during the public comment section, the room fell silent. Miguel Rodriguez, I began, my voice clear and controlled. For years, your company has presented itself as a pillar of our community. But today, we're going to examine the truth behind that facade. I methodically presented the evidence: environmental violations that had gone unchecked for decades, illegal land acquisitions, manipulation of permit processes, bribes disguised as community contributions. Each revelation was backed by documented proof: emails, financial records, official communications. My brother Carlos shifted uncomfortably. My mother, seated in the front row, looked like she might collapse. This isn't just about business practices, I continued. This is about the fundamental betrayal of community trust. A family that claims to represent our cultural values has instead represented only their own self-interest. The most devastating moment came when I revealed a series of emails showing how my family had systematically pushed out small, family-owned businesses to expand their own commercial interests. These were businesses owned by the very community they claimed to support. My father's defense was immediate and predictable. "This is a personal vendetta," he interrupted, his voice rising. "My daughter is trying to destroy our family's reputation." I looked directly at him. "No, father. You destroyed our family the moment you chose your narrow-minded beliefs over your daughter's happiness. I'm simply holding you accountable." The room was electric with tension. Journalists furiously took notes. Community leaders looked shocked and betrayed. Carlos finally broke. "Elena, please," he whispered. "Think about what you're doing to our family." I turned to him, my voice cold. "I learned from the best. You taught me how to strategically dismantle something piece by piece." My mother's breakdown was the most painful moment. She stood up, tears streaming down her face. "Why?" she asked, her voice breaking. "Why would you do this to us?" I approached her, my voice soft but firm. "You gave me no choice. The day you chose your prejudice over your love for me, you created this moment." The hearing became a turning point. Investigations were launched. My father's company faced potential legal action. The Rodriguez name, once respected, was now synonymous with corruption and hypocrisy. But this wasn't about pure destruction. This was about accountability. about showing that love cannot be conditionally given, about proving that rejection has consequences. As I walked out, Maria by my side, I felt something I hadn't expected. Not hatred, not pure triumph, but a profound sense of liberation. I had dismantled more than just my family's reputation. I had freed myself from the weight of their expectations, their conditional love. The Rodriguez family would never be the same, and neither would I. The aftermath was nothing like I had imagined. In the months following the public hearing, my life transformed in ways I could never have predicted. The Rodriguez family's empire crumbled, not just from my revelations, but from the weight of their own accumulated deceptions. Legal investigations uncovered layers of corruption that extended far beyond what I had initially exposed. Carlos lost his real estate license. My father's construction company faced multiple lawsuits and eventual bankruptcy. The social network they had so carefully cultivated disintegrated, leaving them isolated and disgraced. But my own journey was more complex than simple vindication. Therapy became my lifeline. With Maria's support, I began to unpack the layers of pain, rejection, and internalized trauma. Dr. Elena Ramirez, a brilliant psychologist specializing in LGBTQ+ family dynamics, helped me understand that my revenge was both a wound and a healing process. Revenge, she told me during one particularly profound session, is often the first language of pain, but it cannot be the final conversation you have with yourself. My architectural practice became a beacon of hope. I redirected my energy into sustainable design projects that genuinely supported local communities. The very skills I had used to dismantle my family's reputation now became tools for positive change. Each project was a testament to the power of authentic living. Maria and I grew stronger. Our wedding, once marked by absence, became a symbol of chosen family and unconditional love. We started hosting gatherings for LGBTQ+ individuals who had experienced family rejection. Our home became a sanctuary of healing and hope. Unexpectedly, fragments of reconciliation began to emerge. My mother was the first to reach out. Not with an apology, not yet, but with a tentative connection, a text message on my birthday, a forwarded article she thought might interest me, small bridges, carefully constructed. Carlos reached out differently. His own professional downfall had forced a profound self-reflection. "I'm sorry," he wrote in a long email. "I should have stood up for you. I should have been your brother." My father remained the most challenging piece. His world had collapsed, professionally, socially, personally. Yet, I discovered something unexpected. Beneath his rigid exterior was a broken man struggling to understand a world that had changed without his permission. 1 year after the public hearing, an unexpected invitation arrived. A family mediation specialist suggested a supervised meeting, not for immediate reconciliation, but for understanding. The day of the meeting was surreal. My parents looked older, more vulnerable. The room was neutral, a professional space designed for difficult conversations. "I don't expect forgiveness," my father said, his voice surprisingly soft. "I want to understand." We talked. Not about the revenge, not about the legal battles, but about love, about what it means to truly see another person, about the difference between tradition and humanity. Maria sat beside me, a quiet source of strength. She had been my family when my biological family could not. The conversation didn't heal everything. Wounds that deep don't disappear with a single conversation, but it was a beginning, a recognition of shared humanity. My revenge had never been about destruction. It was about forcing my family to see me, truly see me, for the first time. In dismantling their facade, I had discovered something more powerful: my own authenticity. My own worth was not determined by their acceptance, but by my ability to love myself completely. The Rodriguez family would forever be changed, but so would I. As I left the mediation center, holding Maria's hand, I realized revenge is not an endpoint. It's a transformation, a bridge between pain and healing, between what was and what could be. I was no longer just Elena Rodriguez, the daughter they rejected. I was simply, powerfully myself.